Hey everybody. Our first question here is, why don't all children of a family or the same parents look identical? So as our essential question, that's kind of what we're going to look to answer with a bunch of details coming up here. By the end of this you should be able to get that. So a couple pictures here, obviously sperm, egg, which leads to these little fellers, and no, I do not know how they took those photographs. Science, I guess. Our target is explaining meiosis, sexual reproduction, and mutation, and how those things lead to genetic variation. This is not mitosis, it's meiosis. That's a different process, and we'll get into that specifically in a little bit. But these three things then will help you explain why offspring are not identical to their parents. First of all, what is genetic variation? What are we talking about? Well, that could be any different combination of DNA sequences, genes, or chromosomes. It could literally mean one little base pair different. That's variation. That's a difference. It could be a whole chromosome. It could be part of a chromosome. But that's what we're talking about. Literally the order of the bases in the DNA molecule, if those are different, that's considered variation. So meiosis, sexual reproduction, and mutation somehow cause DNA sequences to be different, and that's what we're going to go through. Okay, so the process of meiosis first. Okay, simply put, making eggs and sperm. All right, this process makes those types of cells. In comparison to mitosis, and we'll just do this briefly, in humans, we have 46 chromosomes, as you can see. Now, this is mitosis. This is the thing we learned previously. When we went through the process of mitosis, we came up with two cells that had the exact same number of chromosomes as the parent cell. They were identical. That was mitosis. Meiosis is a different thing. We start out with the 46 chromosomes, but it goes through one cell division, and then each of those goes through another cell division to produce 4 cells with 23 chromosomes, or with half the number of chromosomes as the original cell. So that's meiosis. Okay, making 4 cells with half the number of chromosomes. So why does it have to do that? Why does that happen? Well, if you think about it then, so we got mother, father here, and here's the 2 cell divisions. There's meiosis 1, where we got 2 new cells, and then that splits again, and now we have 4 cells. And with the mother, same thing over here, except usually, since the egg is so large, it steals the resources from the other 3, and so meiosis produces 1 large egg in females and 4 sperm in males. And each egg and sperm need half the number of chromosomes because these things are made to combine. Right? Sperm fertilizes egg, and how many do we have? 23 plus 23. You will then be 1 cell with 46. Okay, that's why they need to have half the number of chromosomes, because they are designed to combine with the other egg or sperm. Okay, a quote here in a study that I read is that if meiosis goofs up, that's considered the most common cause of birth defects, spontaneous abortions, those kinds of things. It happens because meiosis doesn't work. Okay, so it's a huge deal with birth defects and genetic disorders and things. So now there are phases of meiosis, just like there are in mitosis. It just goes through 2 rounds of them. Okay, so it'll go through the same phases. They're just entitled meiosis 1 and meiosis 2, and in the end, where we've got the same here with these 4 cells with half the number of chromosomes, those are all different. Okay, genetically unique means they're different. They've got different arrangements of their DNA in them. Okay, so half the number of chromosomes, but each one of those is completely unique, and it's unique every time. Okay, the phases, it goes through the same: interphase, prophase, metaphase, anaphase, telophase, and cytokinesis. Okay, but then it does it again. Okay, no interphase on the second round with prophase, metaphase, anaphase, telophase, and cytokinesis. So from here to here, that's meiosis 1. Interphase, prophase, metaphase, anaphase, telophase. And then from here to here, prophase, metaphase, anaphase, telophase, again, so that we get 4 cells. So there are phases of mitosis, phases of meiosis, just like mitosis. It just goes through them twice. Okay, so there's a couple of important phases. The first one is prophase 1, and this gets to how meiosis specifically causes genetic variation. The chromosomes line up in the center of the cell over here, dad's chromosome and mom's chromosome, so they're different, okay? And their legs get tangled up, and they actually switch parts. And so now this dad's chromosome's got part of mom's chromosome, and mom's chromosome's got part of dad's chromosome. That's a combination that didn't exist before, and it creates unique variation every single time that it happens. Okay, here's an animation of meiosis, and we'll go through it step by step here in the phases. Now there are 2 chromosomes in this cell, okay, so we're going to keep track of the number. They've copied themselves, but it's still 2 chromosomes. Okay, now we're going to line up in prophase 1. You know what happens in prophase 1? The arms get tangled up and they exchange parts. And so when they get pulled apart, they are now different. They have a different order. And notice that the whole paired chromosome there goes to this side, the whole chromosome goes to this side. Okay, so that's anaphase, telophase, and cytokinesis. Now we're in prophase 2. It's going to go through this again. Okay, we're in metaphase, lines up and pulls them across to the opposite sides of the cell, cytokinesis. And now we started with a cell with 2 chromosomes, and now we have 4 completely different cells in the end. All right, there's another part of this called independent assortment, and it's super confusing to explain. There's an animation. I'll put a link to it in the video here when I'm done, that you can watch, another separate animation that does probably a better job than I will. But basically what it means is that the chromosomes, when they line up in metaphase, that order is random. And so you never know which chromosome is going to get pulled to which side of the cell. And because that's random, there's variation is created by that, because it's never the same chromosomes going to opposite sides of the cell. So this little picture over here with the blue and the red, we've got the blue on this side and the red on this side. If this cell were to split, all the blue ones would go here, all the red ones would go there. But they don't line up like that every time, because the lining up is the completely random part. So now on this one it's switched. The blue and red one have switched spots, and this blue and red one have switched spots. So now when they divide, this red one, this blue one, and this red one go to this side, and blue, red, blue go to that side. So it's a different combination. Here's another different combination. It's, you know, red, blue, blue, red. That's different. And now, so every time they line up in the middle, this order can be different. And because of that, then that creates more variation. Okay, so it's crossing over, and it's independent assortment that create the genetic variation in meiosis. And again, watch the link to that because it's pretty good. Okay, what? Our initial questions, or our initial thing was we have to figure out how meiosis creates genetic variation. You need to be able to explain that. Okay, so good luck with that. 2 things. Should be able to get it. We'll talk about that in class. Now, the other thing is sexual reproduction, which creates genetic variation. And simply put, your kids are only going to have half of your genetic information. The other half is going to come from a completely different individual. Okay, so the sperm has a random 23 chromosomes of dad, and this egg has a random 23 chromosomes of mom. And that is a huge amount of genetic variation, because your kids are only 50% like you. They're 50% like the other parent as well. So that's a huge source of genetic information. Just the fact that when the sperm and egg combine to form an individual, it's half of each of the parents. Mutations. Now that's another source of variation. And some studies here, the average person has 400 defects or mutations in your genes. So yes, we are all mutants. Okay, they don't all cause disease. Most of them have no consequence at all. Okay, most of them have, like, it's nothing. It's just a little thing. It might even code for the same protein. There are a few, and we have some specific assignments that'll cover this, but just in general, the way that causes variation is it just literally changes the sequence of the DNA. Okay, it takes a base out, puts an extra base in, switches some of them around, and sometimes it leads to some pretty drastic results. But again, most of the time there's no effect to that. Here's a DNA with CTT, and there's a mutant. The T is changed to an A, which made a different messenger RNA, which made a different amino acid, which made a different protein. Okay, so that's an example where it does actually make a change. But that's what we're talking about, a simple change in the DNA sequence. Okay, that's about it. Here are some questions that we'll kind of go over in class that are some pretty interesting things to consider. So you can pause it and look through those and see what you think about them. Okay, thanks.